information.
We're gonna get.
Hopefully Jester and a couple other friends might show up too.
I'm sure they will. We're gonna start here in a second. I'm just getting the Facebook Live going.
Hopefully the only crazy lady, she might decide to show up.
Yeah, I'm sure she will. What's crazy? So I went and joined another after we got done with that, the one last night where we were all in. I went and was it a high history?
High history.
Yeah, I went and so we're streaming right now on Facebook, but I went and joined that group and listened to what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And someone in the group saw my name and said, "You're that racist guy that always enters my podcast," and was like getting all mad, right? And I'm like, and everyone, crazy lady, and everyone else, like, no, that's not him. It was a troll. But it's crazy because someone had actually thought that was me because they had used my picture and my name and was going into these other groups, and displaying that it was me. So we're live on Facebook now, and the people that are in the room on Podbeam, you won't be able to see some of my visuals I'm going to put up, but you can go back and watch the podcast. I always upload the video version on Podbeam or YouTube. I want to start off for the people on Facebook. It has been brought to my attention that I have been shadow banned on Facebook. So not everyone is even not even close to everyone is being coming close to seeing some of the stuff that I post. Some people have had difficulties finding the page. So if you're listening on Facebook, go ahead, hit the little bell. There should be a button there that you can press that will notify you when I'm going live or I'm uploading a video. So, Eric, today I want to talk about the Build Back Better plan.
Right.
What the Democrats have been doing, and some of the stuff that they've been talking about, and how it's crazy to me. So originally the Build Back Better deal was started at about $3.5 trillion. I always call it the $3.5 trillion stupid tax. I still call it the $3.5 trillion stupid tax because I think it's going to cost far more than $3 trillion in the long run with a lot of the programs they want to implement. One of the programs that they're trying to carry over from the stimulus package that they passed at the beginning of the year is the child tax credit. Now, Trump offered a child tax credit in his tax cut bill. The child tax credit is nothing new. Joe Biden expanded upon it, and that's fine. But the difference, what Joe Biden also did that a lot of people don't know is before, for you to receive the tax credit, you actually had to be paying taxes. So let's say you had $6,000 worth of a child tax credit. You had 2 kids or whatever it was, and you had a $6,000 tax credit. You only got the $6,000 off of your tax bill that you owed. So you would have had to have owed $6,000 in income taxes. You get the tax credit, brought your tax bill down to zero, right? What Biden did was he took that away, so you would get that tax credit regardless of whether or not you had any kind of tax bill. The reason that's important is because now you have people that may not be working or earning an income, that have a child, and they can receive a tax credit for each one of those children. A guy on Facebook here says, I paid back my student loan and it was only 2%. We gave the banks carte blanche to exploit a segment of the population. So I'm going to go in, Brett, I'm going to go into the student loan deal here as well. I'm going to talk about that. But I wanted to start off with the tax credits because you have some of the Democrats right now in office that want to extend the tax credit, which ends after the end of this year. They want to extend it over the next 10 years of the bill, or indefinitely. Now, currently, I've done some reading. You don't need to show a social security number for yourself to get that tax credit. You only need to show an EID, which means that you could be an illegal here in the United States and receive that tax credit. Again, you don't have to be paying taxes to receive the tax credit. You can have a $0 tax bill and now receive the tax credit. The difference under Trump was that you actually had to be paying taxes to benefit from the tax credit. If you want to go off of what's fair, I would imagine that the fair thing to do would be only give people tax credits that are taxpayers. The difference in thought process between the left and the right is I believe that the right believes that you're going to keep whatever income you make, theoretically. Let's say we're going to give you back whatever income you make. The left wants to actually give you money back when you're on top of income you made. If they extend the tax credit that Biden has currently imposed over the next 10 years, it will cost about $1.5 trillion. Now, the total cost of the bill that they're trying to pass is around $1.75 trillion. So it will completely turn Joe Biden into a liar when he says that the bill is paid for and it will actually reduce the deficit. It won't. No matter what the bill's going to add to the deficit, but it won't be paid for at that point. In fact, it'll be a complete wash if they extend the child tax credit. So I don't see that passing at all. It will cost too much money. The other thing I never can understand is, and we need to, oh my God, we got this other troll in the group. We need to think back. Biden passed a stimulus package when he first got into office for COVID for $1.9 trillion. Immediately after that, they started saying about the infrastructure bill and the Build Back Better plan. They've passed the infrastructure bill, was $1.2 trillion. So add that up. That's brings us to what, $3.1 trillion now? Trump's COVID stimulus wasn't even, he's already passed more in stimulus in infrastructure than Trump did with his two stimulus packages, COVID stimulus packages that were arguably more important than the third stimulus package that had provisions in it like funding billions of dollars into the Pakistan gender studies. The problem I have with COVID stimulus is it did not all go to helping Americans with COVID. There were a lot of wasteful spending provisions. I wrote an article about this last night. A lot of waste. If you're going to have a COVID stimulus package, then why the hell would it not all go towards COVID? And why would it not go towards Americans, helping Americans with COVID? Why are we putting any money overseas, especially for anything that's not COVID related? Furthermore, he's at $3.1 trillion. Now, he wanted to originally pass $3.5 trillion worth of this Build Back Better deal. And he says it's all paid for. It's all paid for. It's not all paid for. Our deficit increased 14% last year and almost 15% this year. When you increase the deficit causes long-term debt because that money has to be accounted for. Here's the other thing. On top of stimulus and infrastructure and Build Back Better, the Democrats want to some Democrats want to cancel all student loans and put in universal health care. We're getting to a point here where we have people in office that truly think we have Democrats in office that truly think it is okay to just create money. And when I say create money, I'm not talking about create money through an economy. I'm talking about just print it. Like they think it just grows on trees and we got enough trees here in the United States to cut down and make the money. They don't look at the long-term consequences of this. They're wanting to implement all of these crazy promises on top of some of the worst inflation the United States has ever seen. Personally, and we're going to go back before COVID with gas prices, because if you want to compare gas prices during COVID, I don't think that's a fair comparison. Why were gas prices so cheap during COVID was because everyone was locked down and the supply of gas was through the roof, the price per barrel for oil during COVID went negative. So you can't compare last year's gas prices to this year's gas prices. You got to look back before last year. Still, let's say, what was it, $2.20 a gallon? Now, $3.50 here in Tennessee, some places. I've seen some places up to $7 a gallon. Me personally, my gas expense for my business, and I drive a lot, I think I deducted $18,000 in gas expenses last year for my business. My gas expense has gone up 60%. And when you have people like Jen Psaki in her White House press meeting saying that businesses should not increase their costs or their costs to the customers because their costs increase, that's the most financially and economically stupid thing I've ever heard. If my biggest expense, which happens to be gas, increases 60%, and I'm charging the same price, and especially for what I do, I make a fee off of investments I manage, I have to increase the fee on the customers whose money I manage, especially if their money isn't growing at the same rate. So you have to take that into consideration. Then on top of inflation and increasing expenses with these businesses, they want to tax businesses at a higher rate. I read a study the other day, I think it was the Economic Foundation of America or something, said that 35% of the cost burden from increasing taxes on businesses is brought onto the employees. The employees bear 35% of the burden on increased taxes on businesses. They bear that burden either through losing their job or making less, being paid less, or having to pay more in taxes. The owner or shareholders of the business had 40% of the burden. It all is passed down. It's funny to me that the Democrats will sit here and criticize what they say is trickle-down economics, which is something that doesn't even exist. You know, the whole theory of, oh, you cut taxes for business and the rich, and they'll spend more money in the economy, and the poor will benefit. They criticize that. First of all, no one on the right, Ronald Reagan, no one ever used that theory. Ronald Reagan used, like I've said, the Laffer curve. All the Laffer curve shows is a happy medium of tax rates and tax revenue. No one ever talked about trickle-down economics. It's not real. However, the Democrats, if you were going to say that anyone is using trickle-down economics, the people that are actually criticizing it, the Democratic Party, are the ones that are actually utilizing that. And they're utilizing it because maybe it doesn't work. Maybe that theory of cutting taxes on businesses and cutting taxes on the rich, maybe it doesn't trickle down. But you know what? The opposite is true, because if you increase taxes on the rich and you increase taxes on the businesses, the effects of that do trickle down. So you're right. Maybe the benefits of cutting the taxes can't be seen, but definitely the consequences of raising those taxes can definitely be proven. The other thing is they want to cut certain things out, like student loan debt. If they canceled student loan debt completely, right now the federal government holds $1.6 trillion of the student loan debt. 92% of the student loan debt is held by the federal government. If they were to cancel that, you have to think that it will not only add the $1.6 trillion onto the deficit, it will add the interest that the government is receiving back from the student loan payments. So it would add $1.8 trillion over the next 10 years to the federal deficit. And you're right, Cool Cat. Midterms are in, you said November, so we got a year. We need to vote them out. If they canceled student loan debt, and I'm bringing up the student loans because we have AOC, and I just wrote an article about this the other day too. AOC got up in front of the House and made a speech, and she thinks that Democrats cannot win in 2022 unless they cancel student loans. The problem with canceling student loans is just, it's crazy because that money has to be accounted for. See, if we cancel $1.8 trillion worth of money in student loans, we have $1.9 trillion passed in stimulus already. We have $1.2 trillion passed in stimulus or in infrastructure. They want to pass another $1.75 trillion in Build Back Better. In less than a year, we're talking of $5 trillion worth of spending or debt cancellation. Do you know what? It would only add about $80 billion worth of value to the economy if they cancel all student loan debt right now. It would add about $80 billion is the midpoint number that I've seen. That's nothing. You're right, Todd. The money will be accounted for on the back of the American taxpayer. And here's my other problem with AOC. I have a huge problem because AOC got up there and says, I'm 32 years old and I have $17,000 in student loan debt. She said, this is crazy. We need to cancel it. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you make $175,000 a year and you've been in office for, I believe, 3 years now. If you cannot stroke a check for $17,000 and pay off your student loan right now, you have been very financially irresponsible. Extremely financially irresponsible because on your own Instagram account, you have shown that you drive a Tesla Model 3, which is a $50,000 vehicle, and you also live in one of the most high-end apartment complexes in Washington, D.C., a very expensive place to live, mind you. Now, she could have gotten that car through a lease, which comes out of her allowance that they get, which doesn't come off of her income. That would mean that she doesn't even have a car payment. Todd says, I don't know how a bartender ever came into a position like that. She should never be an account of any money ever. And you're right. And I'm going to go into that here in a second. But she drives a Tesla Model 3. It's a $50,000 vehicle. I'm imagining when I read about how they can use an allowance that doesn't come off of their income to lease a car for official use, which is, I'm assuming, what she did. She wouldn't even have a car payment. Right there, that's $931, I think it was, freed up that she doesn't have to pay for a car. If she did buy that car outright, if she bought it outright and paid cash, then that's $50,000 that she had on hand that she should have paid her student loans off with. Or if she did buy the car and she financed it, you're going to tell me that I need to cancel $50,000 or your $17,000 in student loans, that taxpayers need to cancel your $17,000 in student loans when you're making 4 times more money than the average taxpayer, just so you can go and take on a debt on a depreciating asset? How stupid is that? And to hit on what you said, Todd, so yes, she was a bartender. She has a degree in economics from the University of Boston, I think. I would argue that for her to be as successful as she is and in the position that she's in, that degree helped her in some shape or form, whether it be through connections or whether it be, for you on Facebook, you don't see this, but on Podbeam, we have trolls in the thing, and I'm not even paying attention to them. I'm sorry, Shannon and Eric. But that degree helped her.
Best thing you could do is just hit the block button on them.
I don't even know how, though. That's the thing. So, but the best thing
you click on their icons and you click the option to block them.
Okay, I'll do that next time they're in. But that degree helped her get to where she's at, which means that degree has been an asset for her. You mean to tell me that you want us to cancel your student loan debt? I'm talking about AOC. And allow you to go, well, at the same time you're going and taking out a loan on a depreciating asset, you think it's financially smarter, AOC, for you to pay a car payment than it is to pay off your student loan. And your student loan, again, allowed you the opportunity to be where you're at. If you look at the statistics, and I know a lot of people think that, college is a scam and all that stuff, but being real, people who have a college degree, on average, make a lot more money than someone who has just a high school education. That is proven, statistically speaking. You can go look at the statistics. I had them, but I don't have them to pull up. And I want to say it's about around $14,000 a year starting out. If you took out a $17,000 loan, you have already made up to get a college education, you have already made up the difference in the cost of your loan with a college degree and put you ahead of someone who didn't take out that loan. Theoretically. Now, I know high school educated people, look, I'm not taking that because I know a lot of business owners that do very well. And Cool Cat, let me know what some of your solutions are. I'm glad to hear what you got. Todd says no because she is manipulating the system, and that is easier for these politicians. You're right. It is easier. Here's the other thing a lot of people don't know. Did you know that when the Affordable Care Act was first signed into office, student loan interest, first of all, they restructured how student loans work, and that's when the government actually took over and started backing the student loans that are in place. Because it didn't always used to be like that. It used to be done fully through private institutions. The government didn't have their hand. When Clinton was in office, the government started getting more and more hands-on with it. And then after the ACA was signed, and they completely changed the whole way it is structured. See, here's the thing: is that it's Democratic policies that have created the whole student loan debt problem in the first place. But now the government holds 92% of the debt, and a lot of the interest that is being paid back goes to fund the Affordable Care Act. And this is fact. It's like 8%, not 8%, it's $8 billion the first year in 2013 of student loan interest went and paid to fund the Affordable Care Act. Sallie Mae and Freddie Mac, exactly. They started that problem right on point. And it is. And I didn't put that in the article that I wrote yesterday. I was going to write another article on the student loan stuff. But it was crazy to me that it funded a few different things, but it was going to pay for the Affordable Care Act. Now, Joe Biden wants to expand on the Affordable Care Act in the Build Back Better deal. There is no incentive for Democrats to cancel student loan debt. Not if they want to pass their infrastructure deal, the stimulus they already passed, in the Build Back Better plan. There's absolutely no incentive for Joe Biden to cancel any student loan debt. It would cost the government $1.8 trillion. The lower I paid my student loan down, the higher the interest went. And that's not right, because that sounds like you had a variable rate, and that's crazy. Cool Cat says, I want conservative colleges that solves the problem. Yeah, well, when you go to college, it shouldn't be biased. I was lucky enough that I was at a college when I got my economics degree that I never had a professor that I thought was biased. They kind of just taught us the theory and how things work. We didn't have anyone that pushed one theory or another. The best professors I had us go and do our own reading and write papers, because with economics is not a multiple choice kind of subject. There's no you go and you write papers and you discuss the theory behind economics, and you can have some wild theory that comes together and makes sense, and you can get an A. Honestly, there's no set science for it. It's not like finance where you do the math and the math is the math. Sometimes in economics it is, but Todd says maybe it was like that because I went to a private college. It could have been, yes. And private for-profit colleges hold a lot of the student loan debt because it costs a lot more. Here's the other thing. If you cancel student loans, it would actually disproportionately help the rich. It wouldn't help the poor. And this is statistically speaking. The reason being is because most of the people in low incomes that have student loans aren't even paying back those student loans right now. There's so many programs in place like income-driven repayment plans and all that a lot of the people that have student loans that have low incomes aren't making payments. The ones that are making payments are the ones that are making good money. So if you canceled those, it wouldn't actually put money back into the pockets of low-income people that are at risk of defaulting on the student loans. It would only put money back into the pockets, monthly, that is, as far as having an immediate impact on the people that are making more money and are actually making payments on the student loans. Todd says, mine were through Sallie Mae. They have been paid off, but this is where the government got involved. Exactly. Now, I'm assuming you paid them all off, which is great. And here's the thing. I would respect AOC more if she had already paid off her student loans and got up there and tried to make an argument on why we needed to cancel student loans. Why? Because she's already taken the responsibility of the obligation that she took out to go to college. I'm not saying she's right or wrong, but I would respect her a lot more. But to get up there and start telling us that we, the taxpayer, need to cancel her freaking debt when she should easily be able to stroke off a check and she's going and buying Teslas. So, that's a huge problem. There's a huge issue with some of the incompetence that with the left, that they're just tacking on these huge spending programs. I mean, just massive spending programs, trillions and trillions of dollars. Here's the big thing I also wanted to discuss tonight. I'm going to pull up a visual for you guys on Facebook here in a second. There's a provision, and you may or may not have read about this. There's a provision in the Build Back Better plan that would make the Build Back Better deal a massive tax cut for the rich in primarily Democratic states. A massive tax cut. In the Trump tax cuts, Trump allowed for a SALT tax, which is state and local tax, of $10,000, a tax deduction of $10,000 of your state and local tax. Now, Trump also doubled or almost doubled the standard deduction of $12,500. So if you're single, let's say, and you're making $50,000 a year, and you're in a state like New York or California where you pay state and local tax. Here in Tennessee, we don't. But if you have two things to deduct. You can either take the standard deduction of $12,500 right now. That cuts your income down from $50,000 to what would it be, $37,500, and then you pay your tax brackets based off of that income after the standard deduction. You would choose one or the other. You can, again, standard deduction, or you can itemize. Itemize means that you have more than $12,500 worth of deductions, and if you choose to itemize, that means you would write off all of that instead of taking the standard deduction. If you have less overall deductions than the standard deduction, you would not itemize. You would just take the $12,500 off your income, and Trump gave you a tax cut. In the Build Back Better deal, they're going to expand that SALT tax deduction from $10,000 to $80,000. 70% of people that make over $500,000 itemize, which means that under Trump, the rich that was in New York or California, let's say someone making $500,000 a year, let's say they had no deductions, but they paid $10,000 in, they may have paid $100,000 in a state local tax, but they would probably just take the standard deduction of $12,500 because the $10,000 deduction wasn't more than that. If you allow the state and local tax to be raised from $10,000 to $80,000 for a deduction, you're allowing the rich to deduct, what would that be? I mean, almost, 600, 700% more in taxes? It would be a substantial tax break for the rich, especially in Democratic states. So I'm going to pull up this visual, and this is on the Tax Foundation. Oh, I closed it out. Damn it. Well, maybe not, but basically, the visual, and you go, I'll put the link in the description, but the Tax Foundation did the math on where it would help people, what states it would help. That state and local tax deduction increase would benefit all the coastal areas in California, all of the Northeast, and some small parts of South Florida. This is Bobble Babble. The middle class pay most of the taxes. So, Cool Cat, as far as income taxes, the rich pay the majority of the income taxes. The only tax that the middle and lower class pay more of is the payroll tax. And they pay more of the payroll tax because once you get above $142,800, you don't pay any more of that payroll tax. You pay 6.2% if you're W-2, or you pay 12.4% if you're self-employed like myself, up to $142,800 in income. So that's the most unfair tax that we have is the payroll tax. Nancy raised taxes and moving to Florida. Yeah, isn't that funny? But now these Democrats actually want to, they want to give a larger tax break on the state and local tax to the rich people that live in these high state tax states like New York or California. And they're saying that they're going to tax the rich. They're not. The rich will actually benefit. The poor will not be benefiting that much, if at all, with the Build Back Better plan. In fact, they're going to take a huge hit. The reason they're going to take a huge hit is because if you start spending another $1.75 trillion, and we already have some of the worst inflation this country's ever seen, you're adding all that money. All you're doing is just completely withering away the value of the dollar, not even slowly, extremely quickly. Very quickly. You're just going to crush the value of the dollar if you keep just putting money into the economy. Money that's not supposed to be there. And they're not taking anything back. Todd says, I wasn't ever sent a form from any student loan after 2002 when I had to pay interest from Sallie Mae to pay those loans off. Says, not even when I paid the last $2,000 off on subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Which makes argument how many other people were not allowed to deduct interest from student loans they paid on. So I do know you can deduct the interest on the student loans, Todd, but you're saying you weren't able to because they didn't send you a tax form that would have basically allowed you to do so. Now, when I've done it, I had to actually calculate how much it was. But that is crazy. And we have people in office that just think like we're just going to make everything free. We're just going to spend. And these same people were complaining about how much the tax cuts that Trump put into place cost the government. The deficit is the difference between how much the government's spending and how much revenue they're bringing in. That's the deficit. It's very easy. They want to complain about Trump not bringing in as much revenue on his tax cuts, which is false, actually. But they want to say that, oh, Trump cost the government this much money and raised the deficit, and he was spending a little bit more. But the difference now is we're looking at spending way more. Like I said, the deficit increased to over 14% last year with $3 trillion worth of stimulus packages. We've already passed $1.9 trillion in stimulus, $1.2 trillion in infrastructure. That's going to increase the deficit even more. This on top of the regular spending they already do. Plus, now we're going to add another $1.75 trillion in this Build Back Better deal. And hopefully it won't pass. But they're just, all this stuff has to be paid for. Greece went bankrupt recently because of this stupid stuff that we're doing. This stupid social spending. Here's what I can promise you probably won't happen. Manchin probably won't agree to pass the Build Back Better plan if they keep the $80,000 state and local tax in place, because that completely blows the whole narrative of we're going to tax the rich and give tax cuts to the middle and lower class. That completely blows that narrative. Oh, and Eric says Cinema probably won't agree with it either. Now, I don't know what her reasoning behind it is. I think Manchin didn't like some of the tax stuff that was in it. Here's the other problem, though, talking about the taxes, that when you go and you look at the CBO scores on the bills, and you go and you look at like Tax Foundation, I like looking at the Tax Foundation, the left does not take into consideration behavioral economics. Now, I get that it's hard to judge what would happen, how someone's behavior would change if you change certain tax rates or whatever. It's hard to judge. So they go off the numbers, which is fine. So I'm not saying that, but the problem is that they're trying to put things into place. Like they're trying to increase taxes on the wealthy. And they're saying that it's going to raise, let's say $1.5 trillion in tax revenue. What they're not taking into consideration is the fact that the rich will just find ways to not pay those taxes. The sad fact is that it will be paid for by the $700 a week I pay in taxes. It just depends on how far they mitigate the tax revenue out, which works for them on their end because it will just accrue interest. Exactly. You can't build from the bottom up and the middle out. That's very incompetent of Joe Biden to say. You cannot build from the bottom up and the middle out. And the other thing you can't do is you cannot make everybody equal. To make equality, I say this all the time, to make equality, complete equality in the economy, you have to bring the top down. And you not only have to bring them down just a few notches, you have to bring them all the way down to make them equal with the bottom, with the lower middle class. That's how communism works. Communism promotes equality in the economy, all that, right? There's no communist country that is a successful or a profitable country. People want to argue China. China is not. The people in China are not doing that great. The average GDP per capita in China is $10,000. In the U.S., it's around 60. So we have 6 times more GDP per capita than China does. You can't even have private ownership in anything in China. I don't think you can even take part in the stock market in China. It doesn't work, guys. North Korea is North Korea because of communism. How do you raise taxes when you're raising inflation? So, Cool Cat, actually one way to combat inflation is by raising taxes. You have 2 ways that they would go about, or you have 3 ways really, but the 2 primary ways to combat inflation is raising taxes and raising interest rates on debt securities. The reason being is because when you raise taxes, you're taking more and you're taking money out of circulation. That's why. So that's why they would say that raising taxes would help inflation. But it also is a double-edged sword because when you have inflation and you're spending more money, if you're going to combat inflation by raising taxes, then it has to be we're raising taxes for the sole purpose of combating inflation, but you can't spend more. Because what you have to do is you have to actually raise revenue and not spend any more on top of that revenue. You have to take money out of circulation, not take it away and then redistribute even more out into the economy. Because if you are taking in more money but you're sending out more, then you're not helping inflation. Todd says you can take part if you're rich. If in China they operate under a socialist economy, not a capitalist society. Exactly. No, that's yeah. So I'm not sure as far as if you're rich, what will allow you to take part in the stock market, but you can't have private ownership. And for the most part, everyone's poor in China. But going back to what you're going to see, we're going to have inflation go all the way through next year. It's going to go for a while. As long as we have people in office that are just going to keep this crazy spending going. And we've been lied to. And it's funny because everyone knew that we were being lied to. When the Fed gets up there and Psaki gets up there and says inflation is transitory. We knew it wasn't transitory. That shit is not temporary. It is going to keep going. It's going to keep going up. Prices are going to keep going up. The other thing is people are buying so much. The supply chains are all messed up. And when you have little goods and a lot more money, that also hurts inflation. The left is not raising taxes for the purpose of combating inflation and bringing down prices. The left is raising taxes so they can spend even more. We're talking about over $5 trillion in promises, not counting the universal health care promise. Just take that into consideration. $5 trillion. After we just heard 4 years of them complaining about how much Trump was spending and how much Trump's tax cuts cost the government. That's the other key word. Tax cuts immediately benefit the people. Cutting taxes immediately puts money back in people's pockets. Immediately. But no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's why it's not trickle-down economics when you cut taxes, because when you cut them, people immediately receive more money in their paycheck. Lost my train of thought. When you are going to just sit there and say, we're going to raise taxes, take money away from people, and then do all these crazy spending plans. Think about this. They want to put billions of dollars into a study in violence in urban communities. A study. We're not talking about something that's going to, like a program that's directly benefiting and reducing violence in urban communities. They're going to put in, I'm blocking them. They're going to block. He's blocked, Eric. Well, I thought he was. He should have been blocked. The left wants to destroy America. That's the only conclusion I come to. And it's an open check for leftist, liberal, communists in the country. You're right, Todd. I agree. I'm not going to go down. Well, I thought he was blocked, Eric. I did block him.
For some reason, they can still share, but they just can't comment or call in.
Well, I block him, and then it goes right back. And sorry, guys, on Facebook, that's not seeing this on Podbean. We got this troll that's going in and taking on. Cool Cat says, I'm part Native American, and I don't want my country.
That's another troll, too.
Oh, gosh. Here we go. It's so stupid. Well, he's already blocked. But they're both blocked.
You went silent, Michael.
Can you hear me? Hello? You guys on Facebook, you can hear me, right? Damn it. Sorry, I'm Podbeam. They're having trouble hearing me. So I'm going to refresh that. But, oh. Damn it. Sorry, I'm Podbeam. They're having trouble hearing me. So I'm going to refresh that. But, so, can you hear me now? Guys? Eric? Facebook, we're all good. They're not going to hijack the thread on Facebook. They're doing it on Podbeam. So don't worry. Facebook, we're good. Hey, in fact, they probably can't even find me on Facebook because I'm shadow banned on Facebook anyway. So at least that's what I've been told. So we're good on Podbeam, and I apologize for the interruption you on Facebook. But it's just crazy to me that there's no consequences to be weighed on the policy that some of these people want to put in place. And then they're going to try and sneak spending provisions in. Yeah, I'm having it. No. They're going to try and put spending provisions in. Todd says that you're probably shadow banned. I can get you just fine. Good. Some people have, but I know one person said that they had to search like 4 or 5 times for me, and that's crazy. And I don't. Can you guys hear me now on Podbeam? And I don't see why Facebook would want to shadow ban me just because I'm a conservative. I know I post a few videos that are funny, but it's just crazy to me that that's where we're at, where Facebook is going to shadow ban someone because they don't like the way that they talk. And I believe on Podbeam, can you guys hear me on Podbeam? Damn it, that freaking frustrates me. You know that? I sit here and get in a show, and it frustrates me that people want to come in and just completely disrupt it. Thanks, Cool Cat. But they just want to completely freaking disrupt it. Trolls. And what's crazy is that these trolls, they want to make me out to be a racist because they use my name and they're saying I'm a racist. Now no one can hear me over here on Podbeam. Gosh, people don't, like, just let me run a damn show. If you don't like what I'm saying, then call in. That's the thing, is on Podbeam, you guys can call in and talk to me about this. If you don't like something I say, then call in and tell me. I appreciate it, Todd. I've been reading about this for a while now, right? And I've written a couple articles about it. And I'm going to have a few more coming out as far as the specifics. But sorry, I'm just checking to see if they can hear me still again. And I try to be as informative as I can. Here's the thing, is even though I have a conservative opinion, it just so happens to be that way because of the way that I have processed all the information available to myself. And I want to show you guys something with this Build Back Better deal that is very eye-opening, but it's something so simple that no one really seems to get. So this right here, this is the Series 7 exam to take your securities license and become a stockbroker. This is the book you study. This is how thick the book is. You know, it's just a textbook. This is for this to become a stockbroker. Can you guys hear me now, Shannon and Eric? I've refreshed the thing multiple times, but this is how thick the book is. Damn, I'm sorry, Todd. This is the Build Back Better plan. That's how thick the Build Back Better plan is. So I want you to think about something. This is an average textbook. Now I've taken, and guys, I did not print out the whole Build Back Better. This is an example just showing you how many pages are in that plan. Okay, that's what this is doing. To become a stockbroker, I did not read this whole book front to cover, right? Todd says, looks like an A+ guide to operate MS DOS. Damn. Yeah, so, yeah. That's how thick the Build Back Better plan would be. Right there. Well, and you say, who had time to read that? Exactly. That's what I'm getting at. Nancy Pelosi has even made the comment before saying let's just pass it so we can find out what's in it. Well, that's the reason why they don't know what's in it, because of how much is. You're telling me there's no increase in taxes on the poor in there? You're telling me that there's something that they're not talking about that's in that? Of course there is. Of course there is. So, all right, I'm gonna end this. Not for Facebook. This is on Podbeam, guys. Sorry. So, just to give you a background, I do the same stream with the video element on Facebook. Podbeam is where it records the audio and actually records the podcast itself. That's also a live show that allows people to call in, right? That's what I'm talking about. You can listen to it on there, and you can call in, and talk to stuff about stuff with me. So that's what that is. That's why I'm over here having the problem. So I just wanted to let you guys know, because I know you guys can't see what I'm doing over there, but so I just had to restart that. But that is how thick that bill is. It's 2,300 pages. This is the book here is 550 to be exact. Almost 550 pages to be exact. The Build Back Better plan is what, 5 times that amount? And Todd says, yeah, she said that in the Affordable Care Act in 2009. Exactly, because the Affordable Care Act is about the same size. Can you hear me now, Eric?
You're back. We're just waiting for Shannon to come back.
Awesome. I don't know what was going on, and just so you guys know, if you go watch the video element, I showed how thick the Build Back Better plan was compared to like an average textbook I have that I had to read to become a stockbroker. It's crazy. They will never call you. They just want to obstruct, plain and simple. Yeah, Todd, you're right. Now, I don't know if you guys actually listened in. Last week I had a leftist Democrat on, and we debated. That's on Facebook, but that's how we did it, is he called in, and then we just streamed it on Facebook as well. So, now we're kind of getting off of where I wanted to go with this whole discussion, but and I want to be a little more interactive. And Eric, if you want to start talking now too and give me your thoughts on some stuff, and Facebook can hear you as well. I blocked this guy. It's kind of hard to. I had Zach as the co-host before. Now Zach hasn't been able to be on here as much. But go ahead, Eric. What are your thoughts on some of this stuff I talked about?
I think you're right on point.
Mm-hmm. Now I read an article today, and I don't know how true this is. I'm trying to go back and look, but Mitt Romney, someone I do not care much for. I do not like Mitt Romney. I think he plays the Republican game. So the ACA was even larger. Isn't that scarier? 3,090 pages. I haven't read a portion of the Build Back Worst Act. You guys are awesome. I appreciate it, Todd. It's the Build Back Better Act is it's hard to read the bills anyway. That's usually what I try to do and try to get my information is reading it directly. But there's a lot in there that just doesn't make sense. Now, I'm not saying everything's bad in it, but one thing that Mitt Romney brought up is that he says the majority of child care facilities are religious based and that they could be forced to shut down under this because they need to follow certain provisions then, because what they're doing in the Build Back Better plan is they're giving out universal pre-K for the most part. And now these religious-based preschools would have to comply with federal law, with federal regulations, whether it be licensing and a whole bunch of other stuff. And also not just religious-based, but in-home facilities, so someone that may run a daycare out of their home. If that's true, then that's a big problem. They're also saying that the cost of childcare could go up about $13,000 due to inflation, which means that it would completely void out any savings that they're trying to implement on people who have children between the ages of birth age and, I believe, 4 years old. Wouldn't that be wild if that's really how it worked out? I mean, I don't know. That's something I was doing a lot of reading on before the show that kind of bothered me. And I have a big problem with the tax credits, the way they're going about the tax credits, because all they're doing is redistributing money. And if you're going to keep going down the road of giving tax credits to people that don't have a tax bill, then you're redistributing wealth, and that's communism. That's factual communism. And Eric, I know you said you haven't, you've only kind of gone into it as far as what Slightly Serious has gone when you guys have talked about it, but
right.
I don't know. Is the new tax code written in that where you will be 1099 if you make more than $599 on private transactions per the IRS audit? So, Todd, I believe they got rid of that. I think they actually got rid of that before. That's what they were talking about doing, right? That was the big thing. Any transaction over at $600, they were going to track, which is crazy to me because how many of us have transactions $600? $600 now and nowadays is nothing. That's absolutely nothing. I think they got rid of that, Todd, but they are hiring 80,000 new IRS agents to enforce tax laws. And that's another thing. If you think about it, and I just said this on Facebook, but you got to have the size of your balls have to be like basketballs to say that we're going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars in hiring 80,000 new IRS agents and expanding the most hated government program or government entity in the United States and think that people will be okay with that. Hey, Eric, I don't know if you noticed. You see this Jimbo name down here? I don't know if you can see it. If you go to the engagements, Eric, on your phone, at the top where it says the people that have been in the room, that guy that had that troll with the racist name, his name changed, and I think that's his real name down here because he left a like in the room. It says Jimbo now, and it has another picture. I think that's the real guy. I don't know if maybe you can do something with that, but you may want to look at that. The sixth Doctor, DR of the Balls of King Bayonne.
It doesn't show him following anybody or having followers.
Okay.
And I have no way of getting his like his web browser icon. If you could snap a picture of that and email it to Podbean for them to lock that account up.
Where do I get that? His web browser icon. Oh, just
if you click on it.
Yeah.
And take a picture of it with your phone, and then with that picture on your phone, send it into Podbean.
I can take a screenshot. I can't do it with my phone though because my camera is my phone. Look, guys, we're not very high tech over here. All right, I use my phone as a camera and stream off of that. But here, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna snapshot, and I'll send that to you when I'm done, Eric. Now he's back in. You know what it is? Is he's going and making more accounts because I keep blocking him and he keeps come back in. But the size of the balls of the king of anyone, that's the size of the balls you need. Yeah, I agree. And now I'm distracted from this freaking thing. But that's kind of what I wanted to get on here and talk about. I hadn't done a podcast all week since Monday, I believe. So I want to get on, and I've been, I wrote 2 or 3 articles this week, and I wanted to actually talk about my thoughts on this whole Build Back Better deal. Thank God it's been put off till the new year. I don't think they will keep pushing on it as much. I think it's going to fail, and it's kind of sad that we have a government who will impose a deadline, and they can't even follow the deadline. Think about it. If your boss gives you a deadline and you don't follow it, you usually get, reprimanded or fired. In school, if you didn't follow certain deadlines, you got an F. Congress can crush deadlines like it's going out of style. They never follow deadlines. The government is the most inefficient entity there is. But, it's kind of what I wanted to get on and just discuss in the first place. ABC7 show. Did you see that guy that just came in, Eric?
I mean, he's good people.
Oh, he is?
He's
Okay,
harmless.
okay, I wasn't sure. But, I think we're going to go ahead and cut it off. For the Facebook, we're right at an hour anyway, and we're over an hour, especially on Podbeam. So, look, we're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. It's a Real Conservative Talk. Everything's Real Conservative Talk. And we're on Rumble. So if we get kicked off of Facebook, we're going to be on YouTube. We're going to be on Rumble. So go subscribe to us on YouTube. If you know anyone else that follows the Facebook page, tell them, go subscribe to us on YouTube. It doesn't cost anything. It's just a click of a button. Todd says he's using multiple IPs. So if you block him on one, exactly what he's doing. Again, I'm a finance guy. I'm not a tech guy. So I have Eric that helps me with this. That brings it up. Thank God for Eric. So
well, Podbean lets people get by with creating burner accounts where they can use fake email addresses, and
they need to address it because they're going to start losing users.
Well, but for some reason the Podbean management doesn't seem to care, because I think they're more interested in making money off of hosts like you paying like the hosting fee for like data storage, and then people who come in your shows and engage, and then of course purchase those gold beans to send you gifts like claps and coffee and beer to like the diamond or the super chats, or if you get to level 2 in your engagement, you could activate your fan club.
Gotcha. I gotcha.
And I'm sure Michael appreciates that compliment, Shannon.
Yeah, I do. I was just about to read that. Shannon says, I think you're awesome, Michael, like a young Rush Limbaugh. That's a huge compliment, and I don't think I'm even close to that. But I appreciate the comment. That's probably the best thing you could have said. But thank you, and I'll probably be back on tomorrow, Eric. And is there any other podcasts tonight that people can go check out while they're listening?
Let me have a look at who's on under the live banner. That the No Filter Radio, I mean, looks like a very good and promising show. But I imagine, Saturday seems kind of dead, and plus with the holidays, probably not a lot of podcast friends are going to be on. But I know tomorrow night, around 10 or 11 p.m. Eastern time, which is 9 or 10 p.m. Central time for you and for Shannon, you will have the It's Doomsday podcast with Jester. So I don't know if Slightly Serious is going to do a pop-up show this weekend where me and him can like catch up on some trivia games with friends.
Okay.
But I mean, I've got three weeks worth of trivia games.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and close this out on Facebook.
And then the Old Man on Monday morning, along with John DeVito on Wednesday. John wasn't able to do his wickedly awesome podcaster interview today, but hopefully he's rescheduling that, and hopefully he's going to have Podfather on the 27th if things work out, and then of course the other podcast shows that I highly recommend is Safe Spaces.
Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and close this out on Facebook. Yeah. Thank you guys on Facebook for watching. Share it. I'm not done on Podbeam yet, Eric. So you can share this, guys. Go look at for us on YouTube. Sorry. And yeah, so I'll probably be back on tomorrow. We'll keep it going. But yeah, if you can, keep sharing it. If we can get around the shadow ban, just make sure you guys on Facebook are sharing it. There should be a notification button that allows you to
just make sure they like and follow your Facebook
like and follow
page.
it. Yeah, they all do that. And then Todd says you guys should do some AES 256 encryption with your servers, and it will easier to get rid of trolls. So Todd, I'll probably message you because when I'm done with this, because I don't know a lot of what you're talking about. Maybe you can help me. Seems like you have a lot more knowledge than I do. So I'll probably reach out to you in regards to that. But again, yeah, I think there's like a little notification bell you can hit on Facebook and YouTube that will let you know when we're on. Please go ahead and hit that. Let's get around that shadow ban, and I'll be back on tomorrow. Thank you guys.